a little too heavy on information, was it? So it was actually necessary to set the correct mood for the talk. So now that you're all here, we formally welcome you back. We hope that you had a hearty meal, and now that you're charged up and pumped up, it's time to call somebody who remains that charged up and gaiety always. From studying in boarding school to commanding an infantry battalion of 1,000+ men deployed under strenuous conditions, sidestepping a bullet, or working in -40-degree temperature, he has done it all. Honored by the Honorable President of India with the Wishes to Save Our Medal, and handpicked to serve at the Presidential House with late President APJ Abdul Kalam, his sessions are tailored to meet the intent of the organization and participants. Often considered engaging, energetic, and humorous, he was the first Indian Army officer on the TED platform speaking on Your Story. He believes it all begins with YOU. Please join me in welcoming Colonel Prabir Sen Gupta. Please, sir.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sure I'm audible, loud and clear, right? Everything fine? Yes. Great, great. I'm Colonel Prabir Sen Gupta, which is Seva Military. I put in 25 years in the Indian Army. While in the Indian Army, I was also instructed in Indian Military Academy. Subsequently, I held various posts till I was commanding an infantry battalion in combating terrorists. For the kind of work we did, my unit did, we were recommended. I am Bangalore, and I was global at Ireland with an MNC. It gave me an exposure of how the CV street worked. Having seen both these fields, is there some lessons that we could take from the army to make our organizations work better? Can we have, for the greater common good, some lessons drawn from instances of valor that I have experienced while in uniform? Yesterday, we celebrated Infantry Day. 71 years back, 27th October 1947, Indian Army was engaged in its first operation post-independence. On 20th of October, Pakistan had launched Operation Gulmarg. They wanted to seize Srinagar, and their Quaid-e-Azam, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, would have recited the prayers or namaz from the Srinagar Mosque. Threatened, Maharaja Hari Singh signed the instrument of surrender, and 26th October, Indian Army, 1st Company, 1st Battalion, 6th Regiment, was thrown into Srinagar, and we thwarted the nefarious designs of our adversary. I am a proud infantryman. Slide, please. Thank you. Unless it's there. Right. And I am an infantry soldier. Proud to be an infantryman. Over these periods of time, the Indian Army is mandated to safeguard national interests from external aggression and internal subversion. There have been n number of instances where you would have heard the 1947 Indo-Pak War, the 62 Sino-Indo conflict, the 65 Indo-Pak War, 71 Indo-Pak War, and the liberation of Bangladesh. But you are also aware that along with this, Indian Army also participated in the Congo crisis, in Seychelles, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Lebanon, Yemen, and all these places. The UN peacekeeping forces are predominantly served by our country. And each time the Indian Army participates in these operations, they have covered themselves with glory. Our army works with the hallowed aim of glory and sacrifice, and we are proud. In our internal subversion road, we started off with the integration of Junagadh, Goa, Diu, Daman, Hyderabad, and of course our Naxal operations. But along with this, we were also engaged with of Meghdut, which continues in Siachen, of Blue Star, Punjab, of Rakshak J&K, which is ongoing, and of course, your very famous Operation Vijay. All across these external and internal subvert roles, Indian Army has lost over 23,000 troops laying down their lives. Besides this external and internal aggression, we have also had various natural disasters where the Indian Army was engaged in, be it the floods, recent floods in Srinagar, Kerala, Trivandrum, Kerala, Chennai, or earthquake in Koyana, Latur, Gujarat, or any of these places. The first respondents have always and invariably been the Indian Army. Besides these natural disasters, we have of course had some man-made disasters. The man-made disasters, like when you go down to the Timber Trail, October 92, when 10 holiday makers were hanging 5,000 feet above the ground, when the cable snapped and they were looking forward for succor. Major Evan Castro of one para regiment, flown in by later Air Chief Marshal Major Fali Major, rescued this operation, these tourist makers. Of course, then you had your 5-year-old prince falling down a 60-foot well, and you all are very familiar with these photographs. Sometimes it was for national image that we reacted when the bridge fell, when we were having our Asian Games, and very recently, of course, we had the Elphinstone Road bridge which collapsed, and Indian Army made the bridge in 6 months. Any number of times you would have seen the Indian Army working beyond its call of duty. Any number of times, be it the surgical strikes in Uri or the 2611 in Mumbai, Indian Army has always covered itself with glory. And people kept asking me, and a number of times you would have seen, it is not a question of who will do it, unlike the industry. Here it is always when will it get done. That differentiates us from the city street. We don't look for volunteers, everyone is volunteer. And that kind of intrinsic motivator motivates us to get things done. The awards, rewards, recognition paradigm in the army is totally different from how it incentivizes the people in the city street. We don't have ESOPs, we don't have promotions, we don't have bonuses. We can't increase a single penny of his pay. How do we motivate these people to perform? Our rewards and recognition, therefore, are not based on if-then reward. If you do this, if you meet this target, if you meet this sales number, you get this reward, you get this bonus. These are extrinsic motivators. External motivators will not motivate you. We look for, now that you have captured Tiger Hill, you will be recognized. So we don't do it for recognition. Recognition follows as an outcome of what we do. And therefore, you would have had n number of instances of individual bravery much beyond the call of duty, be it Lieutenant Colonel Hoshiar Singh, be it Major Dhyan on Hajipir Pass, or be it Shaitan Singh, who was responsible to save Srinagar that day. Or it could be as young as Vikram Batra, or Lieutenant Khetrapal, or even Subedar Bana Singh. These people have gone beyond their call of duty, laid down their lives to protect the nation. We consider ourselves as the last bastion of this nation, and therefore the motto itself of the Indian Army says, service, before self. And that distinguishes us into what we do. Number of people, when I was told to address this, was telling me to address it in a situation where valor comes in and you take decisions. Believe me, these decisions are not easy. Do we face VUCA? Imagine each time I'm encountering a terrorist, it's a VUCA situation. It's a different enemy, it's a different environment, it's a different mindset, it's a different strategy he's adopting. Each and every time there's ambiguity, there's complexity, and there is confusion. Each time is a different engagement. I'll give you a stage that was set in somewhere in the northern sector. Early morning, at around 4:30, this girl walks up to our gate in our camp and tells us, "Sir, there were 4 terrorists in our village whole night who have abused us. We want recrimination. We want them dead." We react, and they have left northwest. I can't show you the maps here. They have left northwest. My next post, which is between this and that location, is roughly 10 kilometers. What are the chances that I'll encounter these 4 terrorists who have left after a night of abuse? Just to give an idea, this is the kind of terrain I am talking of. On the right extreme, you will see a bird's eye view of how the terrain looks like. On the bottom left and the top left, you will see how, when you go near, how the terrain looks like. And if you see these huge boulders on the left bottom, you will see that they are protected. If I throw a grenade there, it doesn't impact them because they are hiding behind this grenade. And in this 10 kilometers, imagine how do I find these 4 terrorists? Of course, we do and there are a number of places where they can go, hide, or take refuge. What do? We analyze the situation, we take the environment, we take the terrain, and we say these are the places, spots where they could be. One of them was a water point where we knew from history that the handler would come there, pick them up, they would lift up their army there and guide them. We said first hit the water point. We go to the water point, and fortunately for us, we are fired at. How many people consider that as fortunate? We do. Because if there is no fire, not a chance. If there is no fire, there is no enemy. And if they are not firing, that means they could be friendly forces. We look for fire. And once the bullet was fired, we said, yeah, now is the time we can. And then we do our probing firing and we encircle them. Now the challenge I pose to you as the decision dilemma. The first, of course, is where and how do you make your contact. The second decision is, should you open fire? Meaning, now imagine a situation where you've got these 4 terrorists in the terrain that I have shown you, encircled, and should they run behind back to the country from where they came from, I don't want them to escape. So I place troops there. I'm here, I'm there, I'm all across surrounding him. If I fire, I'm firing into my own men. How do I fire? How do I neutralize these elements? The major decision dilemma. Right? So we call our Ghatak platoon. Ghataks are the commandos of our team. We tell them probe. Meaning, I'm telling him to lay down his life. Because when he's probing, he's crawling and moving next to those boulders to see where are they hidden and can we engage them. The bravehearts crawl, go, and in a distance of roughly 3 meters, 4 meters, see them, and they're fired at. And then they fire back. In an operation which lasts roughly 4 hours, we neutralize this 4 terrorists. Decision dilemma. People keep saying, how do we evict this terrorist? It is not easy, especially when you are being fired at, and these are live bullets. Right? We go ahead and we do this. I'll give you another example of valor. Here we had gotten information that there was this house in the dope, we call them dope, in the mountain top, where we suspect the terrorists come, dump their weapons, and then freely walk around without the weapons. And if you don't have a weapon, you are not a terrorist. Right? Your name is not there. Of course, we have the documents to prove and all. But without a weapon, it becomes a greater challenge to neutralize these terrorists. And here was this dope where we got this information that they came there. So we go there. Now, my question to you all is the decision dilemma that we talk of. Right? Information authenticity. Now, imagine a khabri comes and tells you that there is this. You are not sure whether he is double agent and he's taking you there to be ambushed. Secondly, what is the authenticity of this kind of information? So we go there. We look around for these weapons. Of course, they are not there. You will never find them because there are n number of places where they can be hidden across the field. You have just seen the photograph. All across there are those fields, there are mountains. It could be dumped anywhere. And each operation we don't carry your, metal detectors. You don't. You're traveling like that. When you're walking for 4 to 5 hours on mountain top, you are not carrying those heavy equipment. Now, how do we, and that is the time when we work on something called, do you work on your intuition, your gut feel? And here was the second lieutenant in my unit who said, sir, I have a sense, I have a premonition, it is here. I said, fine, go ahead, let's see. And you can't break down their house, right? Think of your house and someone comes and breaks it. You can't do that. And I said, Praveen, how will you get these weapons out? Where are they? He says, sir, let me just. And he sits there thinking for 10 minutes. And he says, sir, I found it. And I was looking at him, what? Where did you find it? He says, sir, did you notice the house? I said, yes, there it is. He says, did you measure the distance of the house? It worked out to some 24 feet. He says, sir, under kamra kitna chota hai? How small is the room inside? I said, very small. He says, sir, there is a double ceiling here. And rightfully, when we broke one wall, behind that wall was dumped. They were all meshed up in this wall. Weapons which we otherwise were being, these were the weapons that would have been used against your Indian forces. All hidden in a false wall. Now, how do you get to identify something? So, how long or when would you trust your instinct or your gut feel? Even in civil speak, you will come across such situations. Every time it may not work. Experience and training does help you to hone this gut feel. The more you work on a certain thing, you will know for sure how it works. He says 24 feet, sir, inside 20 feet, there is a 4 feet gap. There is some dissonance here, and we hit upon these weapons. Each and every time you go out for operations, you are not sure what will be the outcome. And therefore, I was very, very, very happy when my battalion got recognized and we were moved to Rashtrapati Bhavan. The photograph that you see is the first day of our unit taking over the duties at Rashtrapati Bhavan. I was privileged to have served with late President Kalam for a year and a half in this building. And yours truly, of course, was awarded with the Vishis Award by the President himself. People said, why do you do what you do? Sir, are you mad? Why does the Indian Army, infantry predominantly, do the kind of thing they do? And I tried to find an answer to this madness. And I think I came down with an answer which we say something called Naam, Namak, and Nishana. It's the name of my battalion that I am ready to sacrifice my life. It's the Namak of this country, Desh, that we are ready to die. And the Nishan is a standard which you carry to battle, around which the forces rally and protect it. It is related to your Naam. And these three things are our guiding principles when we go into battle. Naam, Namak, Nishan. A lot of people, we have our are our fair share of failures. We have N number of failures when we have to shoulder the martyrs on our and take and accompany these martyrs to their own towns. It's not a good feeling, I assure you. And we see that very, very closely. Of course, we have our fair share of successes as well when we engage with these terrorists. And some person very rightfully said, it is not what we do, it is that we are helping them organize their meet with their maker earlier. Lot of times, people then ask, besides your naam, namak, nishan, how do you go about doing things? For a young person, the youth of a country, I would say, it is a sense of duty, your commitment to the cause, bounded with discipline, and your pride in the organization. This thali mein khare, usme chhed nahi kar sakte. The day you are engaged with an organization, you can't belittle it, be it your motherland. Of course there are problems, but you and me together can solve these problems. By deriding it, by belittling it, you are only belittling yourself. Rightly, Arun mentioned, these are problems which our intelligent minds can solve once we address it. It is not something which is not doable. Right. Therefore, if I wanted to give some takeaways, if you are a leader, first and foremost would be integrity beyond reproach. Your moral turpitude cannot be questioned ever. Ever. Second, your foresight and vision to see what is coming. The very city that we are standing in today is a perfect example of what is foresight and what is vision. Captured put. Next, take calculated risk. She was mentioning in her talk, take calculated risk. Unless you take calculated risk, you will not come out of your comfort zone. Push yourself, push the envelope. And last but not the least is Nishkam Kar. Do your job. That is why you are here. Do your job. If you are looking for the rewards, recognition, believe me, they will follow. And each one of you who is sitting here knows you will invariably get more than what you deserve. Look back on your life and you would have realized, yes, I have got something more than what I really deserve. I have worked hard, but the results have invariably been more than what I deserve. If you are a team member, of course, teamwork is the bedrock of success. Team. Winners always hunt in packs. The sum total of the whole is greater than the sum total of the parts. Invariably, always and every time. And have explicit faith in your buddy, because this buddy is the reason why I am standing today in front of you. Because he was responsible to look after one arm while I was looking after the other arm. The buddy pairs together. I need to have explicit faith on this buddy. And therefore in the army we used to say, he is my brother. Because should something happen in operations, my own blood brother would not have been there to light my fire. It would have been my buddy. Have that kind of faith in the system. Last, Nishkam Kar. Keep doing your job. Keep doing your job. And as individual, I would suggest, have a sense of discipline of your mind, of your body. It pains me to see people, youth, frittering away the kind of energy that they have been blessed with. And the great things that you are rightfully supposed to achieve. Train some more. Only with training will you be able to excel and achieve what you have set out for. Have that kind of self-belief. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can do it. This self-belief is also correlated with your self-efficacy and your training. And that belief strengthens. And last but not the least, is Nishkam Kar. Chapter 2, verse 7 of Bhagavad Gita says, Hey Kundanandan, एक व्यवसाय आत्मिका बुद्धि एका. Your website as a student, Atmika, your wisdom, Buddhi, your intellect, Eka. That kind of focus, there is no reason why there will be no success. You're bound to succeed. With this kind of focus, website, Atmika, Buddhi, Eka, I'm sure each one of you here will excel. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Colin, for an extremely engaging talk. We're grateful to you for the service, nation, and the society at large. I'm sure we'll all take some takeaways from this talk and retain it in our minds. Thank you so much. Our next speaker has grit that equals the Indian Army. She's an international basketball player and founder of B7 Sports Management. Since childhood, she liked to be the active and play outdoor games. From 1997 to 2001, she was a member of the senior Indian women's national basketball team and also represented her state, Karnataka, in cricket and basketball. At the end of her athletic career, she dedicated herself to earning an MBA in human resources and marketing. In her basketball career, she particularly cares about the sport in children and women's area and the imparting of organized training to them. In 2015, she was selected as one among the 16 emerging women leaders in sports by the US State Department and ESPN. She has served in the Paralympic Committee, Olympic Gold Quest Foundation, and is also a FIFA Level 2 coach. Her goal is to drive change in the perception of sports throughout India. Please put your hands together for Ms. Pavitra Chandra.
Growing up as a young girl active in sports or interested in sport in a neighborhood about 3 decades ago, largely found a lot of boys involved in the outdoor activities and girls mostly involved in the indoor activities. So growing up then, I was very curious and I wanted to go out and play. So I reached out to the girls and I said, hey, come, let's go play cricket with the boys. I said, are you kidding? They're not going to give us a chance to play. I said, why not? Let's go ask. And they said, no. And I said, no, I'm going to go ask. So I went up and said, hey, boys, I want to play with you. And they said, okay. They looked at you and said, okay, go stand there. Every time the ball goes out, you're going to fetch the ball and give it to us. So fielding was my job. I was excited because for the very fact that I had cracked in and I was part of the team. But least did I know that my job was only to fetch the ball every time. Days went by, months went by, and I realized I was never getting a chance to bat or bowl. And I went up to my mother crying and said, you know what, I want a cricket bat. These boys are not allowing me to play. I want a bat. And like most Indian mothers, said, okay, you get a 1 in 10th rank, and we will make sure that I'll get you a full cricket set. And I said, wow, done. Then I went and tried to study as much and came out with a 12th rank. And I was a little disappointed. I said, oh God, I'm going to be stuck with fielding for the rest of my life now. So, but what happened interestingly was my mother came up to me and saw me lying on the bed and she said, hey, get up, don't you want to go pick up your cricket set? I said, but Mom, I came 12. I did not achieve the target. She said, no, but I liked what you did. I liked the effort you made. So come on, let's go get yourself a cricket. I said, yes, that's it. I ran up, bought all the stumps, the pads, the gloves, everything, brought it over. I got padded up at 3 in the afternoon for a 5 o'clock game when the boys are going to come out because I was so excited. The boys came and they were totally envious of the new cricket bat. And they said, wow, come on, let's play today with the new cricket bat. And I said, ye mera bat hai aur aaj pura din mera bat hai. And I ended up doing that. Of course, thanks to my mom and the boys who gave me an opportunity to explore my interest. Later on, moving on to high school, we had the class prefects coming into our classrooms and asking us, who wants to get into basketball? Who wants to give in your name? And at that time, we're not from the dinosaur era, but we did not have internet at that time. But we did not know basketball or any information. So I just wanted to hang out with my friends, and we said, okay, let's just give them our names. And we gave the name for basketball, and then I slowly nudged my friend, and I asked her, by the way, what's basketball? She said, by the way, even I don't know. Some 2 poles, I believe you keep jumping and you grow tall. So I said, okay, that's interesting because most Indian girls want to be tall, if not for the stilettos. Then on, I, of course, went on to achieve my dream of playing for the national team and the sports, cricket and baseball as well. But the biggest thing that caught my attention was the kind of negligence or the lack of infrastructure in the support system or use of science and technology in the way we train, because I believe that had we had those opportunities and had we had those kind of exposures, we could definitely have matched up the international standards, not on today's basis, but I'm talking about something 2 decades ago when sports was not even considered a viable career for most people. So I decided if I needed to see this change, then I must be part of the system, and that is what I decided. I said, let's get into it. And we did not have many sports management companies or sports management courses back then at all. So I got to serve in the Paralympic Committee of India as the first woman on board with them. And during my stint with them, I had a beautiful experience which I would love to share with you all today. I was accompanying the Indian team at the 2006 Commonwealth Games in Melbourne. And I had this opportunity of seeing this young girl, a 13-year-old girl, her name is Kanchanmala Pandey, and she's from the small district of Amravati in Maharashtra. And I was quite baffled by the fact that this kid at 13 years old is representing India at the world stage. How exciting. And her form of disability was she was 100% blind. She had never seen what water looks like, and she had no idea, had never seen the national flag or what colors. She just heard about it. But when I spent about a month with her in the Games Village in Melbourne, I was very happy to see the way she was excited going up towards the aquatic center. And every time she said, Didi, pull out again, come on, let's go train. And she was so keen to get a medal for the national team. And I was quite surprised because, ironically, though she's blind, I've seen she had a beautiful pair of eyes, and her spirit was unmatched at the age of 30. And out of sheer curiosity, I asked her, I said, Beta Kanchan, kabhi bhi tumhe aisa laga? Did you at any point of time feel that God has been unkind towards you? You wish you could have seen the very water that you swim for this country. And even before I could complete my question, Pat came the answer, and she said, hey Didi, kam se kam Bhagwan ne mera haath paun to theek diya. And that day, I got my biggest lesson from a 13-year-old girl, knowing that I chose to see what was missing in her, and she chose to see what was positive in her. And that's when I realized that if we care enough to listen to what children tell, there's a great opportunity to learn. And I wanted to make sure that we open this opportunity for children and women, and the idea of having to do some work in the field of sports was conceived about 20 years ago. And most of my friends, colleagues, and everybody said, you're crazy, you should not be getting into this. There's so many career options, why are you getting it? When have you seen a woman entrepreneur trying to be developing sport in this country? So you're going to fail. I said, it's okay if I fail, but I cannot accept myself not trying it. And I want to try it. I want to give it a try because I know, I believe that I can make a difference in this. And while our organization functions on 3 verticals of sports consulting and sports events, which are more on a professional level, but the most passionate one was starting up a basketball academy for young kids. And so in the city of Bangalore that I live, we all know that there's an issue of traffic and scarcity of land. So if I needed to reach out to these children, and if I needed to go and make sure that every child out of the house comes into playing the game, then it was important for us to have a basketball court in the neighborhood, which was quite unthinkable and quite exorbitant at that point in time. It left us with very little options but to collaborate with the local authorities and give them the new idea, because every playground that I saw in our city, I only saw men. I only saw boys playing. Where are the girls? Why aren't the women out there playing? Because they don't feel safe enough. They don't feel competent and safe enough or opened out to go in an open space and participate. When we women constitute 48% of the 1.3 billion population in the world, then why are we denied this opportunity? Because we're had taken us about a few months to put up the court. It took me years to push that paper from table to table, knocking on every pillar. And I went there, I sat there for, sometimes they would make me wait for 6 hours a day. And they said, you know, and months had gone by. I said, sir, what are you doing? Why are we taking so long? And they kept on dragging it, and then eventually I said, okay, I'm an athlete. I will not give up. I will come and sit in your office. And eventually they said, I don't think this woman is going to go. You might as well sign the papers and finish it. And that gave us the first ground that we wanted in collaboration with the authorities to put up for the children. And I thought I'd really achieved a huge task, and I was wrong, because that was just the beginning of all the problems that we were beginning to face. So when we put up the basketball court, we had to share it in an open space with a lot of other men who are not used to seeing women or having a bunch of women do any activities. So they were trying to intimidate us, and they were people who were trying to play cricket with the tennis ball, and and betting, and a lot of the ground was usually filled with a lot of nefarious activities like smoking, drugs, a lot of fights breaking into it. But here was a neighborhood that I wanted to make sure that we clean up that place and make sure it's safe for children, women, and everybody to come and use that space for a constructive way. Eventually, when we started the training with just very few kids on hand, the cricketers would run into the court on an average of 1 minute, 6 to 7 times. They would come while we're training, bump into the kids, bump into us, women coaches, and they would try to intimidate and use abusive words. So we were running out of patience. At one time I warned them, I requested them, and then eventually I just took up the ball and put it in my pocket, and I refused to give it. And you all know in India, how much time does it take for a mob to just come and surround you? So within a minute I had 100 men with stumps and bats coming straight right up to my face, trying to tell you that we're going to throw you out of this place because this place belongs to us. And it wasn't about challenging, but the question was about being right. We weren't doing anything wrong. We were trying to help the next generation have the right opportunity. And as much as I was, to be honest, having people come this close to you with bats and stumps is not a great experience to be in. I thought my heart was really pumping hard. I thought it's going to just fly out of my rib cage. But that day I decided I have kids standing right behind me, and if I have to teach them what is right, then I must also stand up for what is right. And I stood up and I said, look, I do not know what game you're playing cricket with, a tennis ball, or whatever it is. I'm willing to offer you respect as an athlete, and I want you to do the same for us. Next time any one of you step into this court, or even touch my kids, or any of my women coaches, I swear to God, I'm going to peel your skin like carrot. And that's it. And of course, the police were involved, and we thought that the problems had stopped over there, but not quite really. They wanted to make their presence felt, so every single day for the next few months, they came to the ground, they tore the nets, they broke beer bottles on the court, they threw cigarette butts and all kinds of food and garbage, and they would urinate on the ground. And to start the training at 5 o'clock, because as an athlete, I believe a training ground is equivalent to a temple. A temple should have its purity and sanctity. And having these and getting young kids to come and see this was not the environment I desired or we desired to put across for the young kids. And to get somebody to clean the court that early in the morning was unthinkable. So for many months, my mother and I got up at 4 o'clock, and we used to go to the ground and sweep the court, clean the court, get back, get freshened up, get back for training. And we did that for many months, and we said, no matter how many times you keep breaking that net, I will be coming back and putting it. Eventually, they too gave up. And that is the image you see of the way they tried to destruct the court, which it took us a long time to build it. And here is a picture of something that we took from a neighborhood that was filled with nefarious activities to make it into a beautiful place where children were trained in a very scientific way, in an entire system that was used only for elite athletes representing the national and international teams. The same methodology signed and the help of sports scientists with the parameters of checking them in terms of their performances. We brought it down to the grassroots level itself because we wanted to make sure not just athletes, but also create great citizens for our country. And of course, I've always believed that when we have a good product, the product should or ought to generate that kind of an energy which should fetch you about 80% of all that you're trying to target, because I'm a strong believer of marketing. The word of mouth is the strongest tool of marketing. And we realized that once we were interacting with the children, we realized that there was a disconnect with their parents. We're motivating the children, we're giving them right, and the children are receptive. Children are very receptive, but what's the point if we only motivate the children when the ones who are controlling and decision makers for them are their parents? But the parents, this was a generation who had never experienced sport, they had not played sport, and they did not understand, and they just took it as extracurricular activity. And the kids felt very disheartened because they were so involved and they felt disconnected with their parents. So during my interactions, we learned. Now here's a very important point is, when you have to grow in anything, number one, learning is important. Number two, listening is important. Number three, observations. And then make the changes. It gives you the idea to improvise. So we said, okay, let's start the first match for the parents, and we get the parents to come and play and kids to coach them on those days. And let's see how many baskets. So some Indian parents have very high expectations of children, from the kids. So when we put them on to real expectations, they said, oh, now putting the basket is not that easy. So they're a little more cooler with their kids and not very, pressurizing them as they do with their academics. So we started the first parents' match in the community, getting the mothers and the fathers to play. And we also realized that these were a generation who did not understand much about sports. So we were the first ones to start the conference for parents for whose children are in sport, educating them about what language you should use, what kind of communication you ought to have with your children, what kind of diet and other basic things to bring them into the, to align them with our end result. And further on, when we went on and we were training, there was one good observation I saw. When we have the little children in our sub-juniors, we have these kids, the boys and girls are an equal number. But the moment we come to the intermediate, which is about the young girls hitting their puberty, the numbers were dropping down drastically. More boys, but lesser girls. And we said, why is it happening? And when we did a bit of research and understood that it's a myth, but most of the parents feel that the young girls shouldn't play after they reach their puberty. But then we said, no, we have to change this mindset of India, and how is it that we're going to do? So we said, who better than a mother to motivate a young girl, or even the boys as well? So we said, we started the first basketball women's program for mothers about the age of 35. Said as long as the mother is playing, she will make sure that her daughter is also playing. And when a son sees his mother or sister, everybody playing, he's comfortable with the idea of seeing everybody as an equal team and not on any gender bias. And we initiated the first women's basketball team for, And then we realized also the other point that we wanted to do for the young kids is they were lacking role models. Everybody needs an idol. Everybody needs somebody to look up to, somebody they aspire to, somebody who inspires them. So we decided that, yes, we're going to do this for the first time in the grassroots level program. We're going to get the top elite Olympians, international athletes, Guinness record holders, bring them over straight to the grassroots where the children have a direct one-to-one interaction, not just be a dreamer, but also be a dream chaser. And we started the first sports conclave for children. And we were happy to have partnered with a leading five-star hotel to do this at a complete free of cost for the children, so that nobody is denied an opportunity. We wanted them to experience elite sporting experiences right at the grassroots level. And we were fortunate enough to have many of our supporters. But having said that, we're also not only focused on urban, we also have focused on the rural segment, because we realized that there has to be something that bridges the gap. And all these are from great observations. And we said, okay, we talked to the city kids, and we said, what do you think, how do you think we can help? I said, Mom, I'm willing to share my shoes. I'm willing to buy these toys. I'm willing to share these clothes. And said, okay, let's do this. Let's collect this, and we'll go and share it with the kids who are not fortunate enough as us, so that there is some compassion. You're building compassion with the children. You're teaching them how to be sensitive to your surrounding and don't mute yourself. And you can see the smiling and happy faces of the children from the rural segment where we supported for the last 14 years. And we share all the knowledge with them as much and want to encourage. And this is purely initiated by the children themselves as well. And As you can see, the children always wanted to play. So by now, we've taken 99% of the kids who came to our academy had never played a sport before, never held a basketball before, and they don't even know. So right from teaching them to wear their attire, to their diet, to the sleeping habits, to every single thing, we started from the very basic for them. And then eventually, they said, "Ma'am, we've learned everything in such a short period of time. Let's compete. Why don't you go get us a club affiliation and let's start taking part in the state championship?" I was a little hesitant because I know how these federations and associations work, and I was not too keen because my mind was more on making sure that we focus on the positive energy. But then also I realized if the kids are asking us, it's my duty to make sure that we give it to them, because I always thought that, you know, I did not receive something much as I would have desired during my days, but that should not be denied for the kids. So we said, okay, we will go and approach. So we went and approached the association, and we had all the facilities. We were more than qualified to be affiliated, but they denied our affiliation. The first year, I was disappointed. I didn't know how to break this news to the kids. So I came back to them and I said, you know what, they're going to take a little more time. I think we need to practice a little more and get better, and they will give us affiliation. Then we went back the second year. They didn't give us the affiliation. We said, we want to compete. It's a right for the children to have an exposure. There's nothing wrong in this. So why can't we get this chance? And again, we were denied. And I came back with a very broken heart, and I saw the kids' faces. And instinctively, I made the declaration to them. I said, you know what, kids? They're not giving us a competition to participate in. Never mind. If they're not giving us competition, we will create our own competition. And that gave birth to the first B7 league, which was a league concept much before India came to know about the league concept in the form of hierarchical or other sports. And we started the first in-house league, which became very popular among the kids, the parents, the grandparents, the community and neighborhood, that we gave them an experience of a total professional. And all this I'm talking to you about was about a decade and a half ago. And when we empower young girls and the youth to participate in sport, I feel that this definitely gives them a lot of confidence, a lot of happiness, and that smile and the joy in the face only gives them the right to live the life that they ought to live. Because I believe a healthy body leads to a healthy mind, and a healthy mind leads to a healthy nation. And I'm not here today in front of you to tell you to do what you do, but I would like, through my story of having many challenges of coming into sport and facing them, there's one thing that I learned was every time there's a challenge, always find a solution. Be a person with a mind of solution. And don't give up, because that's what sport is taught. No book in this world, no classroom in this world can teach what a battlefield or a sports ground can teach you, because this knowledge, you take it with you to the grave and use it long beyond your sporting life as well. And I'm very fortunate to have had opportunities to work with children who've been a great inspiration for me, and I want to continue doing a lot of work with women and children so that they also get the equal support that they deserve. And I'm here today not because I'm a success. I'm here today in front of you because I refuse to accept failure. And while everything around you helps you to prepare for success, it is only sports that teaches you to accept failure, but yet rise above it. So I hope that each one of you who will be facing challenges in your life as you go into your careers will keep in mind that when you refuse to give up, success is always knocking on your door, and you will be unstoppable. Thank you very much.
So, a true story of unflinching grit and courage. As easy as it was for us to listen, we can only imagine how she was there in the ground tackling all of it. And her mom was there to support her. Amazing, Pavitra. We are all so inspired, and we are so honored to have you here. And I'm so overwhelmed as a woman. Two amazing women here doing unconventionally in their careers and doing extremely well. We are so proud of you. Thank you. So up next, something a bit away from this talk. 1 million people have now signed the independence petition for new Brexit vote. It was just 1 week ago that almost 700,000 people took to the streets of London for the People's Vote and the Independent March for the Future, the biggest mass demonstration UK has seen ever since the Iraq War. While another round of referendum seems very far-fetched, we are forced to think whether Brexit was for the greater common good or was it a mistake? Let's see what Alexander Betts has to say.
I am British. Never before the phrase I am British elicited so much pity. I come from an island where many of us like to believe there's been a lot of continuity over the last 1,000 years. We tend to have historically imposed change on others, but done much less of it ourselves. So it came as an immense shock to me when I woke up on the morning of the 24th of June to discover that my country had voted to leave the European Union, my Prime Minister had resigned, and Scotland was considering a referendum that could bring to an end the very existence of the United Kingdom. So that was an immense shock for me, and it was an immense shock for many people. But it was also something that over the following several days created a complete political meltdown in my country. There were calls for a second referendum, almost as if, following a sports match, we could ask the opposition for a replay. Everybody was blaming everybody else. People blamed the Prime Minister for calling the referendum in the first place. They blamed the leader of the opposition for not fighting it hard enough. The young accused the old. The educated blamed the less well-educated. That complete meltdown was made even worse by the most tragic element of it. Levels of xenophobia and racist abuse in the streets of Britain at a level that I have never seen before in my lifetime. People are now talking about whether my country is becoming a little England, or as one of my colleagues put it, whether we're about to become a 1950s nostalgia theme park floating in the Atlantic Ocean. But my question is really, should we have the degree of shock that we've experienced since? Was it something that took place overnight? Or are there deeper structural factors that have led us to where we are today? So I want to take a step back and ask two very basic questions. First, what does Brexit represent? Not just for my country, but for all of us around the world. And second, what can we do about it? How should we all respond? So first, what does Brexit represent? Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Brexit teaches us many things about our society and about societies around the world. It highlights in ways that we seem embarrassingly unaware of how divided our societies are. The vote split along lines of age, education, class, and geography. Young people didn't turn out to vote in great numbers, but those that did wanted to remain. Older people really wanted to leave the European Union. Geographically, it was London and Scotland that most strongly committed to being part of the European Union, while in other parts of the country, there was very strong ambivalence. Those divisions are things we really need to recognise and take seriously. But more profoundly, the vote teaches us something about the nature of politics today. Contemporary politics is no longer just about right and left. It's no longer just about tax and spend. It's about globalisation. The fault line of contemporary politics is between those that embrace globalisation and those that fear globalisation. If we look at why those who wanted to leave, we call them leavers as opposed to remainers, we see two factors in the opinion polls that really mattered. The first was immigration and the second sovereignty. And these represent a desire for people to take back control of their own lives, and the feeling that they are unrepresented by politicians. But those ideas are ones that signify fear and alienation. They represent a retreat back towards nationalism and borders in ways that many of us would reject. What I want to suggest is the picture is more complicated than that liberal internationalists like myself, and I firmly include myself in that picture, need to write ourselves back into the picture in order to understand how we've got to where we are today. When we look at the voting patterns across the United Kingdom, we can visibly see the divisions. The blue areas show Remain, and the red areas Leave. When I looked at this, what personally struck me was the very little time in my life I've actually spent in many of the red areas. I suddenly realised that looking at the top 50 areas in the UK that have the strongest Leave vote, I've spent a combined total of 4 days of my life in those areas. In some of those places, I didn't even know the names of the voting districts. It was a real shock to me, and it suggested that people like me who think of ourselves as inclusive, open, and tolerant perhaps don't know our own countries and societies nearly as well as we like to believe. And the challenge that comes from that is we need to find a new way to narrate globalization to those people, to recognize that for those people who have not necessarily been to university, who haven't necessarily grown up with the internet, that don't get opportunities to travel, they may be unpersuaded by the narrative that we find persuasive in our often liberal bubbles. It means that we need to reach out more broadly and understand. In the Leave vote, a minority have peddled the politics of fear and hatred, creating lies and mistrust around, for instance, the idea that the vote on Europe could reduce the number of refugees and asylum seekers coming to Europe, when the vote on leaving had nothing to do with immigration from outside the European Union. But for a significant majority of the Leave voters, the concern was disillusionment with the political establishment. This was a protest vote for many, a sense that nobody represented them, that they couldn't find a political party that spoke for them, and so they rejected that political establishment. This replicates around Europe and much of the liberal democratic world. We see it with the rising popularity of Donald Trump in the United States, with the growing nationalism of Viktor Orban in Hungary, with the increase in popularity of Marine Le Pen in France. The spectre of Brexit is in all of our societies. So the question I think we need to ask is my second question, which is how should we collectively respond? For all of us who care about creating liberal, open, tolerant societies, we urgently need a new vision, a vision of a more tolerant, inclusive globalization, one that brings people with us rather than leaving them behind. That vision of globalization is one that has to start by a recognition of the positive benefits of globalization. The consensus amongst economists is that free trade, the movement of capital, the movement of people across borders, benefit everyone on aggregate. The consensus amongst international relations scholars is that globalization brings interdependence, which brings cooperation and peace. But globalization also has redistributive effects. It creates winners and losers. To take the example of migration, we know that immigration is a net positive for the economy as a whole, under almost all circumstances. But we also have to be very aware that there are redistributive consequences. That importantly, low-skilled immigration can lead to a reduction in wages for the most impoverished in our societies and also put pressure on house prices. That doesn't detract from the fact that it's positive, but it means more people have to share in those benefits and recognise them. In 2002, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, gave a speech at Yale University. And that speech was on the topic of inclusive globalization. That was the speech in which he coined that term. And he said, and I paraphrase, the glass house of globalization has to be open to all if it is to remain secure. Bigotry and ignorance are the ugly face of exclusionary and antagonistic globalization. That idea of inclusive globalization was briefly revived in 2008 in a conference on progressive governance involving many of the leaders of European countries. But amid austerity and the financial crisis of 2008, the concept disappeared almost without trace. Globalization has been taken to support a neoliberal agenda. It's perceived to be part of an elite agenda rather than something that benefits all. And it needs to be reclaimed on a far more inclusive basis than it is today. So the question is, how can we achieve that goal? How can we balance, on the one hand, addressing fear and alienation, while on the other hand, refusing vehemently to give in to xenophobia and nationalism? That is the question for all of us. And I think as a social scientist, that social science offers some places to start. Our transformation has to be about both ideas and about material change. And I want to give you 4 ideas as a starting point. The first relates to the idea of civic education. What stands out from Brexit is the gap between public perception and empirical reality. It's been suggested that we've moved to a post-factual society where evidence and truth no longer matter, and lies have equal status to the clarity of evidence. So how can we rebuild respect for truth and evidence into our liberal democracies? It has to begin with education, but it has to start with a recognition that there are huge gaps. In 2014, the pollster Ipsos Mori published a survey on attitudes to immigration, and it showed that as numbers of immigrants increase, so public concern with immigration also increases. Although it obviously didn't unpack causality, because this could equally be to do not so much with numbers, but the political and media narrative around it. But the same survey also revealed huge public misinformation and misunderstanding about the nature of immigration. For example, in these attitudes in the United Kingdom, the public believed that levels of asylum were a greater proportion of immigration than they were. But they also believed the levels of educational migration were far lower as a proportion of overall migration than they actually are. So we have to address this misinformation, the gap between perception and reality on key aspects of globalization. And that can't just be something that's left to our schools, although that's important to begin at an early age. It has to be about lifelong civic participation and public engagement that we all encourage as societies. The second thing that I think is an opportunity is the idea to encourage more interaction across diverse communities. One of the things that stands out for me very strikingly, looking at immigration attitudes in the United Kingdom, is that ironically, the regions of my country that are the most tolerant of immigrants have the highest numbers of immigrants. So for instance, London and the South East have the highest numbers of immigrants, and they are also by far the most tolerant areas. It's those areas of the country that have the lowest levels of immigration that actually are the most exclusionary and intolerant towards migrants. So we need to encourage exchange programs. We need to ensure that older generations who maybe can't travel get access to the internet. We need to encourage, even on a local and national level, more movement, more participation, more interaction with people who we don't know and whose views we might not necessarily agree with. The third thing that I think is crucial though, and this is really fundamental, is we have to ensure that everybody shares in the benefits of globalization. This illustration from the Financial Times post-Brexit is really striking. It shows tragically that those people who voted to leave the European Union were those who actually benefited the most materially from trade with the European Union. But the problem is that those people in those areas didn't perceive themselves to be beneficiaries. They didn't believe that they were actually getting access to the material benefits of increased trade and increased mobility around the world. I work on questions predominantly to do with refugees. And one of the ideas, I spend a lot of my time preaching mainly to developing countries around the world, is that in order to encourage the integration of refugees, we can't just benefit the refugee populations, we also have to address the concerns of the host communities in local areas. But in looking at that, one of the policy prescriptions is that we have to provide disproportionately better education facilities, health facilities, access to social services in those regions of high immigration to address the concerns of those local populations. But while we encourage that around the developing world, we don't take those lessons home and incorporate them in our own societies. Furthermore, if we're going to really take seriously the need to ensure people share in the economic benefits, our businesses and corporations need a model of globalization that recognizes that they too have to take people with them. The fourth and final idea I want to put forward is an idea that we need more responsible politics. There's very little social science evidence that compares attitudes on globalization. But from the surveys that do exist, what we can see is there's huge variation across different countries and time periods in those countries for attitudes and tolerance of questions like migration and mobility on the one hand and free trade on the other. But one hypothesis that I think emerges from a cursory look at that data is the idea that polarized societies are far less tolerant of globalization. It's the societies like Sweden in the past, like Canada today, where there is a centrist politics, where right and left work together, that we encourage supportive attitudes towards globalization. And what we see around the world today is a tragic polarization, a failure to have dialogue between the extremes in politics and a gap in terms of that liberal centre ground that can encourage communication and a shared understanding. We might not achieve that today, but at the very least, we have to call upon our politicians and our media to drop a language of fear and be far more tolerant of one another. These ideas are very tentative, and that's in part because this needs to be an inclusive and shared project. I am still British. I am still European. I am still a global citizen. For those of us who believe that our identities are not mutually exclusive, we have to all work together to ensure that globalization takes everyone with us and doesn't leave people behind. Only then will we truly reconcile democracy and globalization. Thank you.
So moving from virtual space to the real space, I'm sure we're all eagerly awaiting our last dignitary for today. Up next, we have with us the ever so modest Coconut Man of India, an award-winning storyteller, songwriter, change leader, and a brand builder. An award-winning storyteller, songwriter, change leader, brand builder, known for his unconventional ways of positioning individual and corporate brands in the industry. Manish heads Change Management Marketing and Public Relations for Mahindra Special Services Group, one of India's leading corporate security risk consulting firm. He has over 2 decades of industry experience working on client engagements from small-scale companies to large B2B and B2C organizations like Microsoft, Ciba Vision, Kraft Foods, Jaguar and Land Rover, Hindustan Unilever, Aravind, IFCO, UAE and others in varied roles including change agent, sales and marketing, public relations and brand risk management. You can see the list is huge. Let's give up a huge round of applause for Manish Advani. So.
I'm very happy to be with all of you this afternoon. A few minutes back, I was walking in your campus and I found a beautiful. Sorry, I didn't take the permission. There was no one around. So when I looked at the flower, I thought, I'll begin my talk by asking you a few questions. How many of you in this room want to be happy? Yes? Say yes. You want to yes? Yes. Louder yes. Yes. Are you doing something about it? Yes. So that's good to know. How many of you in this room want your loved ones to be happy like this flower? Say yes. Yes. And are you doing something about it? Yes or no? Yes. If I was in the US, the audience does it. Yeah! Now, our last set of questions would be, how many of you in this room want to see everyone in this world around us happy? Yes. Like this flower? And are we doing something about it? That's my question. Do you think we'll be happy looking at the flowers like this around the world? There were two flowers, I picked both of them. And when I looked at this, it doesn't give you a good feeling. When I was a young child, going to school, there was a famous song of Michael Jackson. I'm not sure how many of you are big fans of Michael Jackson. But one of the music videos which I used to often watch of Michael Jackson was Heal the World. Make it a better place for you and others to live. The song had beautiful lyrics. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. The thing that stuck to my heart when I watched the video of this song was in this video, they show a war zone. They show kids who are not happy seeing that war zone. It's not a great feeling to see a war zone, especially for the kids. For children, it's not something, because they are used to being happy. Like the flower which I showed, the flower which is not that happy. Children, if they're not happy, we don't feel good. So these children work hard to transform that situation from a war zone to something beautiful. They unify people. And whenever I watch this song, I used to always feel, is there anything I could do? The social activist within me used to be, hey, I need to do something. But after I was done watching the song, I would again get caught up in my cycle of irony and mine, and I would be busy with my life. Years later, somebody sent me a beautiful verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. 4 words from that verse stuck to my heart. And those 4 words were Praner, Arte, Diya, and Vacha. The essence of the verse was that every individual in this world can serve. No matter who you are, you all have the power to make a difference. And it gave example of various people. So Praner stands for life. So as an individual, you can serve with your life. The way many missionaries do, like Mother Teresa and Srila Prabhupada. One can serve with wealth, the way many philanthropists do, like Bill Gates and Ajay Ram. Third, you can serve with your intelligence, the way many people do, like Devi Shetty of Narayanpeta, like Dr. Venkat Swami of Arvind Eye Hospital. And our friend Nitin, he talked about some of the beautiful experiences he was sharing, a social entrepreneur. So with your intelligence, you can serve as a social entrepreneur. And the 4th way you can serve is through your words, Vacha. Like Mr. Chris Anderson, by creating a TED platform, like many other media houses who are, giving you a facility to share the good work which others are doing in this world. And it's easy, I believe everybody has a phone, and on your phone, I'm sure you have many apps, many social media handles, and you can leverage on those handles. If not with other 3 things like wealth, intelligence, or life, you can at least start by serving with words, by promoting the good work which others are doing, by sharing with all the people you know in this world. So you can inspire, create the world of inspiration. With this verse in mind, when I was in the journey, I'm known as the coconut man of India, because I embarked on a journey which involved, giving away over 2,500 plants in coconut shells. I embarked on a journey by conducting workshops on these coconut shells, art workshops, where I used to teach people artwork on these shells. And when I was in this journey, I was thinking, is there anything I can do beyond this? And I conceptualized a house made out of sun-dried, discarded coconut shells, which end up in garbage. Conceptualizing is very easy. I'm sure you would know in innovation. It's very easy to conceptualize, think of 100 ideas, but making it happen is a task in itself. So I collaborated with the students of Samaya College. I got an architect on board named Mr. Jenny Trivedi, who took out 15 days of his life to serve on this project. I put my funds into the project. I mean, the funds were not too much. I mean, just spent about 15,000 rupees to create world's low-cost house made out of sun-dried coconut shells, with support of students like you and an architect who was an expert in designing and making things happen since he had the experience. And within about 15 to 16 days, we had world's first house made out of sun-dried coconut shells, which won an award for our country in the House of Commons in the British Parliament. And from there, I mean, we had many media houses doing story on some of the work which we are doing, and they were serving us in a way by, promoting the good work we are doing. I don't know the number of people who got inspired, but I feel, even if I've inspired one person in my life is a success. Because I know that one person can be like a moon which can light up the entire sky. Stars do light up, but they have their limitations, but a moon has a wider range. Since the time I have been in the city of Jamshedpur, I've been thinking about one personality. That personality has been the legend. And our country owes a lot to this one person, named Sir Jamshedji Tata, whom I offer my respects. To understand the life of Sir Jamshedji Tata, you have to go back in that era in which he was living. In that era when India was an agrarian economy, when India was still under the British rule. And at that time, Sir Jamshedji Tata, a person who was born in an ordinary family of simple priestly family of Parsis. From an ordinary person, he becomes extraordinary. He is one of the best design thinkers I have ever read about in this world. A design thinker who could think in that era of mega projects like the Tata Steel, like the Tata Power, Taj Palace Hotel, and the Indian Institute of Science. Just imagine if he wasn't there. Post-independence, India would have continued to be dependent. Because without steel and power, your industry cannot grow. Those are the two key ingredients for industry foundation to be laid. And the best part is this man was never attached to the name, the Indian Institute of Science. He is the third son of Sir Jamshedji Tata, who was quoted in his will. He got his will altered, and there is no name attached to it that this is an institute owned by Tata. That was a personality Tata, a modest and a humble and a gentleman. When I analyzed the life of Sir Jamshedji Tata, I realized his life was based on two very strong principles. In addition to being one of the best design thinkers. And those two principles, one was, the motto which he received when he was 9 years old from his priest. And the motto in the Parsi language was Humta, Hukta, and Varshta. Humta means good words. Humta means good thoughts. Hukta means good words. And Varshta means good actions. So he had a very strong foundation of culture. In addition to this, when I read his quote, I realized he had another thing which he practiced regularly. And his quote was, in a free enterprise in which we operate, the community is not just any other stakeholder, but it's the very purpose of our existence. When you go deeper into this quote, you will realize he lived a life of not only culture but compassion. And I believe Tata Group is one of the only groups in the world whose shares are under the custody of charitable entities. In addition to culture, compassion, design thinking, you might have all these three things. But you cannot change the world if you don't have desire. Without desire, you cannot make much difference in this world. You might come and go. your story might not be there. But if you have desire to do something positive, you have desire to change, be a change leader, you will be a different person. You will leave a legacy behind when you leave the planet. And you will be proud of living a great life. I began this talk by talking about how children transform the situation in the Heal the World music video created by Michael Jackson. I would like to end my talk by again talking about children. Children are the future leaders of our country. And we don't want children, we don't want to leave our children with a wrong or a bad environment. And that's only possible when we start practicing a life which is of culture, based on compassion, and learn the principles of design thinking, which makes us learn the lessons of empathy and sympathy, and not only that, makes us problem solvers in this world. And lastly, have the desire to work or to live a life in which we dedicate our life well, words, and well for the greater common good. Thank you very much.
All of us already knew that change is the only constant, while Manish told us that constant has to be positive. Thank you so much, Manish, for such a awe-inspiring conversation. We were really indebted to you. Next, we would like to call upon stage our chief guest, Sir Professor Sunil Kumar Sarangi, to give away a small token of appreciation to the speakers. So would you like to share a few words?
I'm not sure. John Quincy Adams famously said, "You are a leader if you inspire others to dream more, learn more, become more, and do more." And I must say, all of you, without exception, did that today to all of us. I owe a huge sense of gratitude to all of you for having inspired all of us to really learn more, do more, become more, and of course, dream more. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And I must tender my unconditional apology to Miss Kirti for actually mispronouncing your name, because you know what, if you're a stupid academic like me, you kind of take your academic immunity for granted. And this is the price one has to pay for being away from the mainstream television, which I have been. I don't know whether I should really express my regret, but yes, I must say it was wonderful listening to you. I'm sure all my student friends have been extremely inspired by your talk. Arun is not here, I believe. Arun, thanks a lot in absentia for the wonderful passion that you showed towards Planet, which sounded like absolute melody. And Mr. Sisodia, for your wonderful, wonderful concern for the little lives that we actually don't think too much. And I'm sure you are actually kind of a trailblazer, and we are learning a lot from you, and from your innovation, and from your technology, and of course from your prowess to make that change happen. Last but definitely not least, the three most important speakers. Colonel, we were absolutely transfixed. In fact, I was taken back to those days when probably least known fact, one of the most dreaded commanders of Axis forces, Desert Fox, Erwin Rommel, would say, I really, really respect the enemy force, that is the British Empire, because it has Indian soldiers. And you truly talked about the spirit of our army, which is actually not a fighting force. It will be belittling to call Indian Army a fighting force. I think it's a state of mind, and you are a reflection of that. Thanks a lot for having spoken to all of us, sir. Ms. Pavitra, yes, your indomitable spirit to never actually lay down your arms, and that was really, really outstanding. And I'm sure all of you having goosebumps while listening to you speak. And you really made a difference to yourself, and I'm sure you're still making a difference to the society that you're part of. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being here. Mr. Advani, of course, your suave and sophisticated approach to happiness hypothesis, and of course, your poetic lines about human emotions, I'm sure we learned a lot from all of you. Thanks a lot to all of you for coming here to XLRI, and we are indeed indebted to all of you. And I'm sure in the days to come, we'll be learning a lot, even more, from all of you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, and yes, we would like to probably give them something away. Yeah?
Yes, yes.
Yeah? Fine.
So would you please stay? So we begin with a round of felicitations. First, Miss Kirti Bhotika. Louder round of applause, guys. Mr. Nitin Sisodia. Colonel Praveer Sen Gupta.
Thank you, sir. It was a great honor to have you here.
Miss Pavitra Chandra. Come on, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for
Mr. Manish Advani. So Mr. Arun is not here. Will be no, he just went around the campus. So with this, we come to the end of this wonderful event. The talks that we witnessed today triggered within us a wide variety of emotions. We laughed, we empathized, we felt horripilated at times. Whatever our emotions were, let us take them along as we walk through that door. Let's conserve those emotions and reflect how they can be utilized to make an impact for our community, for the greater common good. Having said that, we would now like to invite the man behind this grandeur, the core of the core organizing team of TEDx XLRI, Yash Parekh, to deliver a thank you note.
So this was one of the most interesting Sunday mornings I think we have all ever had here at Excel. And with all due respect to our esteemed speakers who came all the way from their hometown to our small yet wonderful ecosystem here at Excel, I would like to first, under my selfish interest, congratulate my team who put together all their effort right from the ideation of the event through the execution. They worked upon the curation of the speech of our speakers. They also worked upon the travel arrangements, accommodation, along with the academic schedule that makes a lot of difference over here. They made all of this possible, and it was all because of them. Also, to our audience who put this show up, they came up on the only day they have in a week, the Sunday morning, to come here and witness this phenomenon. To Sunil Sarangi sir, who was here to help throughout the journey of our event, and our esteemed speakers, of course, without whom this event would not have been possible at all. So thank you all of you, and we wish to see you again next year when we organize the next edition of our TEDx XLRI. Thank you.
So, Sir wants to speak to you.
Friends, I'm sorry, actually, I was actually taking cue from all our speakers. I think we need to appreciate all of you for having put in such tremendous work. So I would request all of you to come and introduce yourself, starting with, of course, you, being the first time on the equals, Yash. I know the kind of tremendous midnight oil that all of you have been burning. So I think the least we could do is to have you really be here and stand here and talk to all of them. So please come. Yash and your team, please. Yash, please. Aparnesh, please. The 2 minutes of fame, please enjoy that. The glory and fame, okay? Yes, so these are the stars, friends. I'm extremely proud to have worked with all of them, and very proud to have taught all of them. Yes, yes, please come, all of you. Please, it's a tremendous feat of achievement for all of you. So round of applause for all our stars. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day ahead. Thank you. Thanks a lot for coming here and sitting here and listening to all of us. Thank you.